We sat down with Hillary Clinton Friday for a lengthy interview about her general election strategy against Donald Trump, whether it was time for Bernie Sanders to get out of the race, and the latest developments on the FBI investigation into her email server. Secretary Clinton, you have said that Donald Trump is a loose cannon. You've said he's dangerous. Are you suggesting he's not of sound mind?
Well, I think that being a loose cannon means saying that other nations should go ahead and acquire nuclear weapons for themselves when that is the last thing we need in the world today. Being a loose cannon is saying we should pull out of NATO, the strongest military alliance in the history of the world, and something that we really need to modernize but not abandon. I think saying that he's a loose cannon really focuses on some of the statements he's made, which I find concerning, going back to torture, killing terrorist families, which would be a war crime. And those are just some of the concerns that I hear people talking about, which I think does fit the definition of a loose cannon.
But you're not making any claims about his underlying stability.
I'm talking about what he has said in this campaign and continues to say, and the kind of agenda he's putting forth for our country, which obviously I think would, not be in the best interests.
What do you take away from the Republican race now that it's over?
Well, I have to say the Republicans themselves are raising questions about their presumptive nominee. And I think that's in large measure, John, because they do understand how hard the job of being president is. When you have former presidents, when you have high-ranking Republican officials in Congress raising questions about their nominee, I don't think it's personal so much as rooted in their respect for the office and their deep concern about what kind of leader he would be.
You've said that he should be asked hard questions now that he's in the general election, essentially. Give me 3 hard questions you think he should be asked.
Well, when he says that Americans don't need a raise, and that's why he doesn't believe we should raise the minimum wage, what's that based on? Because if you look at the evidence, and more than evidence, if you listen to the stories, as I have now for more than a year, of so many Americans who haven't had a raise in 15 years. It raises serious issues about, how well he understands what's happening in the economy to working people.
So his answer would be he wants to create jobs, and those jobs will raise wages. That would be. So he's been asked that question, and he just has a different view.
Well, he doesn't have a view. He has a slogan, and he needs to be really pressed on that. When he says climate change is a Chinese hoax, what does that mean? Has he ever talked to a scientist, or is he just, again, assuming a slogan? When he said women should be punished for having abortions, what does that mean? And how would he go about that? Or rounding up 11, 12 million people, which he again repeated, which would entail the most comprehensive police and military action inside our borders that is imaginable. And you combine that with a lot of what he has said about foreign policy, and then recently economic policy, when he said he'd renegotiate the national debt. Maybe he just doesn't understand that running our government is not the same as making real estate deals, that putting the full faith and credit of the United States of America at risk would be a horrible outcome, and it would raise interest rates, it would wipe away savings, it would cause a financial global meltdown. People need to be pressing him, and I don't think people get, especially in the media, at least so far, into other than just the response, which then is not followed up on.
One of the things that people said about this race, either with respect to Donald Trump or even with respect to your race against Bernie Sanders, is that specifics and details, voters want what they want. And details, sometimes in specifics, are brought out there, they're discussed, they're fact-checked, and yet people still want the candidate that they want.
Well, I can only tell you my experience, which has led to my putting out specific plans, saying how I would pay for them. And as we sit here today, I have 3 million more votes than Senator Sanders and 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. So clearly there is a constituency for a candidate who says, look, we don't just diagnose the problem, we offer solutions for the problem, because I want to run on an agenda that the people of America can hold me accountable for. And you can go to my website, HillaryClinton.com, and you can read about my plans to make college affordable, to improve the Affordable Care Act, what to do about climate change, how to create more infrastructure and manufacturing and clean energy jobs and everything else that I've laid out, and exactly how I would pay for any new initiative. You see, at the end of the day, John, I really believe that Americans take their vote for president seriously, because they know it's not only the president, but the commander-in-chief who they are selecting. And I have a lot of confidence in the common sense of the American voter, and I'm going to continue to talk specifically about what I will do, draw contrasts with my opponents, and particularly with Donald Trump.
When people look at what a general election might be like, and we'll get to the race that you still have going in the Democratic race, but they see Donald Trump has high negatives, high unfavorable numbers. You also have high unfavorable numbers, and they think this is going to be a very ugly race. Why are they wrong?
Well, I'm not going to run an ugly race. I am going to run a race based on issues and what my agenda is for the American people. I don't really feel like I'm running against Donald Trump. I feel like I'm running for my vision of what our country can be, and to knock down all the barriers that stand in the way of Americans getting ahead. I've heard about those. I've sat across the table from, so many Americans. I've been in large and small crowds. People grab my hand and talk to me about how hard it is to make ends meet. They've got 2 minimum wage jobs and they can't pay their rent, or their child has an addiction problem, or they can't afford college. I know what is really racking the hearts and minds of Americans. I'm going to stay focused on that, and I hope that that's what the voters will want to hear.
Some of your aides talk about something called Republicans for Hillary. They think that with Donald Trump getting the nomination, it opens a certain kind of Republican voter to you that might not have been available before. How do you get that voter? The skeptical voter who's skeptical of Hillary Clinton, but that you might be able to get now. What's the pitch to them?
Well, obviously, I'm reaching out to Democrats, Republicans, independents, all voters who want a candidate who is running a campaign based on issues, who has been willing to put out plans and explain those plans and talk about how to pay for those plans, who has a track record of getting results for people, who understands that although we do live in a dangerous world, there's nothing we can't meet in terms of the challenges we face if we put our minds to it. And so I think that for a lot of people, again, who take their vote seriously and who really see this as a crossroads kind of election, I am asking people to come join this campaign. And I've had a lot of outreach from Republicans in the last days who say that they are interested in talking about that.